Comedian Nate Bargatze just tried to save Hollywood using economics. And we're going to talk about what the problem was he was addressing and why it's an economics problem, what Nate Bargatze did to try and solve it, and what economics tells us about what he could have done better. So this problem was about the Emmys, right? The awards that they give out every year for best primetime television, similar to the Oscars for movies, Tonys for Broadway plays, right? I don't even know all the different awards, but every year these award shows face the same problem. Nobody wants to watch them. But that's not the problem he tried to solve. I guess he tried to solve it because he was hosting and he tried to bring in people who watched it for his comedy. I did watch his sketch before his opening thing. So I guess it solved that problem, but he's solving it with comedy. What did he do to solve with economics? Well, the other problem that happens every year, it's such a big problem, it becomes a meme. It's that the speeches for accepting the award go too long. Now, there's, as far as I can tell, no official time on how long speeches should be. Though what I hear, again, I don't watch these shows, but around 45 seconds, the music starts to swell. There's the, hints that you're supposed to be getting off the stage. Well, those hints don't always work. In fact, this year at the Oscars, Adrien Brody, who won Best Leading Actor in The Brutalist, gave an acceptance speech that was 5 minutes and 36 seconds long. It set the record that had been previously set, I think, back in 1943, before they even televised these speeches. And, at one point, I see the issue here, right? For a lot of people, this is the pinnacle of their career. This is the thing that they have been working towards. And by winning this award, they've kind of shown that they've made it. And they want to thank those people who helped them get to where they were in life. And so, you might have a lot of people, and 45 seconds just really isn't a lot of time. Your lifetime achievement award has to be summed up in a TikTok. You have to get out there and say something that would not be longer than a short form video. That could be hard. I can totally get it that you might want to ramble a little, make sure you don't forget anyone, because you do not want to go home and realize that you forgot to thank your mom or your fiance or whoever it is. So I get it that people tend to go a little long. But the economics problem that this creates is called a negative externality. When these people are giving their talks, they are getting personal benefit from it, right? Their acceptance speech doesn't really do much for anyone else in that room or anyone else watching. It's a pure personal good of, I want to thank these people and I'm going to take time to thank these people. But the consequences of that, the cost of this, goes out and affects the people in the audience who are like, heck, I don't really want to listen to this whole speech. I'm kind of getting bored. It affects the broadcasters who have ad time that they've already sold, and they need to make sure they show these. They're paying for broadcasting time. So that's, costs on how much they're showing that material and not getting on to the show that's debuting. Sometimes it's debuting, right? The show that comes on right after, right? That time adds up and takes away from other people. And those individuals don't have to pay that cost. The broadcasters, the audience, right? The audience gets bored and they turn off the television, they switch the channel, right? And all of those are costs associated with speeches that go too long. But the individual doesn't have to pay those costs. And so their choices are creating externalities, in this case, a negative externality, and it's hurting other people. And the award show, they would really prefer it if they could keep the show moving along. So that is an economics problem. And Nate Bargatze decided to solve that problem using a combination of comedy and, most importantly, economics. He starts off the show by saying, I'm going to donate $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club. This is a charity that is widely appreciated. This is something that people are happy to see that he's going out there and donating to. But he adds a catch. For every second an acceptance speech goes over 45 seconds, that will reduce his donation by $1,000. And then for every second you go under 45 seconds, he'll actually add to the pot. And I love this solution for a couple of reasons. First, I really like how he has put this donation out there. It reminds me of an experiment. I have this mug back here for the Monday Morning Economist. Shout out to Jadrian. And I've picked out Mr. Beast bars. You can't quite see them at the same time if I have them on the table, though. Okay, so this experiment involved a mug and a chocolate bar. And they had 3 groups of people in this experiment. In all 3 groups, they had to do a task. Something that, is irrelevant for what's going on here. And then at the end, they were receiving a reward. So in the first group, they presented them the mug and the chocolate bar. And they were, supposed to be pretty equivalent value. I believe the mug itself was from the university they were at. The chocolate bar was a high quality chocolate bar. We all know Monday Morning Economist Insights, much more valuable than chocolate bar. Make sure you subscribe to his newsletter. But they could choose between them. And they found that when people had to choose at the end of the experiment, people went about 50-50. It showed that they were pretty equivalent rewards. The other 2 groups were randomly selected to either receive the coffee mug first or to receive the chocolate bar first. So they gave them that and said, here you go. Here's your coffee mug for participating. Thanks. Let's get into the experiment. Here's your chocolate bar. Thanks. At the end of the experiment, the researcher said, by the way, we gave you a coffee mug, but we also have chocolate bars, and we're willing to give you the chocolate bar instead if you decided that you wanted that one instead. Or, hey, we gave you the chocolate bar, we'd be willing to give you the coffee mug instead. In that experiment, if you received one of them first, I think the numbers were something like 80% of people kept the thing that they received first rather than switching. Only 20% switch. And that's pretty phenomenal considering that at the beginning, people split between these 50-50. So there's something about having this first and maybe getting some ownership over it, thinking about this, that creates some value to that above and beyond just choosing them flat out. This is called the endowment effect. The endowment is we're going to give you an endowment at the beginning, and then once you have that, you now become like more attached to that thing. And that's what Bargatze did with this this donation. He put it out there. He didn't start off and say, hey, we're at 0. I'm not donating anything. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to build up this donation based on how much you guys go. He said, hey, I have already set out $100,000. Now, when you go over, you're going to see that donation is being reduced. We're getting you the mug. We're giving you the mug right here. But as you go too long, we're going to take that mug away that you like. We're going to take it away and you're going to see the consequence. And so he's using the endowment effect, this really hopefully powerful mechanism to get people to do the thing that they're supposed to be doing. The other thing that I like is just the very basic economic principle of creating a price for your speech. He's trying to internalize the externality. So I make this choice, and the benefits I receive personally, the costs I do not receive personally. Well, Bargatze said, hey, the cost is now $1,000 per second, and everyone around you is going to see that you're costing us money. They're not us. You're going to cost this charity money. And he tried to really play this up. He brought out kids from the Boys and Girls Club to show here are the individuals who will be suffering if you are selfish. He really tried to lay on that there is a price and you should internalize that price so that way you keep your acceptance speech shorter. As much as I think this is a really cool way to design, or at least design the incentives to attack this problem, there is one problem to create, and it goes back to when I first started learning about economics. So when I was in high school, I was assigned to read Freakonomics, and this is what really started me on my journey to learn about economics. And there's a story in here, very famous story, maybe possibly disputed story, about an Israeli daycare. And people there had a similar problem as this acceptance speech issue, where people were, instead of people going too long, what was happening is people were showing up too late to pick up their kids. And they said, hey, how about we resolve this by putting on a fine? And this fine will help you realize that there is a cost to you showing up late to picking up your kid. We have to stay here. We don't get to go home to our family, right? Like, these are costs that we're bearing that you are getting a benefit of showing up late for, right? Like, let's see if we can use economics to solve this. According to the paper, what happened was, when they instituted this fine for showing up 10 minutes late, it actually became a worse problem. People started picking up their kids late every day. Like, the people who were showing up on time and making sure they were there, they start showing up late. And the issue, they hypothesize, is that the fine was set at a too low of a rate, where people decided, well, it only costs that much for an extra 10 minutes. Like, yeah, that will save me tons of stress. I'm going through all these issues trying to show up and get there on time, when they've said it's not that big of a deal. I don't know the exact fee. Let's say it's $3. Hey, $3 for an extra 10 minutes at the daycare when I'm in a bind, easy pay. I'm going to do that. And so by trying to attack that problem, they actually made the problem worse. They took a high-powered social incentive, right? This social disregard, not disregard, that's what they're having, right? Sorry. This kind of social pressure, like, you should be picking up your kids. And if you don't pick up your kids on time, you're not really a good person, right? You're causing problems for us. High-powered social incentive with this really low-powered financial incentive of, hey, if you don't show up on time, we're going to charge you $3. And $3, it turns out, is not that big of a cost to pay compared to the embarrassment or shame of being a bad parent who doesn't pick up their kid on time. And so that could possibly be what happens in the Emmys, where they know, like, okay, I'm going over my time. The music is playing. I'm feeling rushed. I'm trying to get every name out. But now, instead of that social pressure I'm feeling from the audience, from the network, I just say, like, oh, it's only $1,000 for every second that I go over. Like, that's actually not that expensive. I'm a high paid actor who charges way more than that for my time on lots of things, right? I don't know, what are cameo rates at right now, right? People will charge super high cameo rates, or this is my lifetime achievement award, right? Like, if I have to pay $5,000 to make sure I get my mother's name out there, I think I'm willing to pay $5,000. And so you could actually get the problem that people go longer. I actually wondered if anyone would be willing to pay and just say, like, I don't care about that thing going on. I'm just going to pay this so I can go longer. And it turned out somebody did. One of the actresses, I can't remember her name or even which award she got because I wasn't watching, but she started going over and just said, I don't care about this thing going down. I'm going to pay the difference so I can get my speech out there. All right. Well, that now doesn't solve the problem of speeches going too long, right? They say, great, I'm allowed to go long as I'm willing to pay the price. And I'm willing to pay that. That's a super cheap price for this once in a lifetime experience. The question is, did it work? Well, I just said that somebody went over and said, I'm willing to pay. At one point, Seth Rogen was accepting, I guess, another Emmy. He got up there a couple of times, is my understanding. And that donation was going negative and far, far, far into the negative. $60,000 underneath. I guess that technically means that these actors were paying Nate Bargatze, or is it that the Boys and Girls Club has to pay Nate Bargatze $60,000? That's kind of messed up. So, but just because the donations went in the negative doesn't mean it didn't stop it. Because what we're really interested in is, did it trim down all of those speeches on average? Not did we stop a few people going way over, right? So Adrian Brody, who had his 5 minute and 36 seconds talk, maybe he shortens that. And so it ends up on net being better. So how would we actually test this? Well, I think the best way to test this is to actually go through and look at all the acceptance speeches, time them, figure out if that went down. I'm not willing to go through all that work right now. I did the really short test, which is I just looked up the run times for the past Emmys. And so in 2024, last year, the Emmys went 3 hours and 8 minutes. In 2022, it went 3 hours, 3 minutes. 2021, 3 hours and 15 minutes. And 2020 went 3 hours and 6 minutes. So, the average for all these is 3 hours and 8 minutes. And that 8 minutes is probably the part that they're most concerned about. Like, they probably want to end right at 3 hours, get the programming going. And if they're going over, that's lost ad time, that's lost show time, whatever it is. So it must be cutting down that 8 minute average at the end that's important. This year, the award show went 3 hours and 5 minutes. And so, maybe it might have worked. It might have cut it an average of 3 minutes down, which 3 minutes, $100,000 for 3 minutes. That's a pretty big price to pay. Now, of course, he didn't have to pay $100,000. So I guess technically Nate Bargatze is in the clear because he didn't have to pay anything according to those rules, and they saved 3 minutes on the broadcast. But then he just had to go and ruin it. So would this work again? And how can we use economics to make this work even better? Well, if they ignore my advice, this definitely isn't going to work again, because Nate Bargatze, as I said, went and ruined the whole thing. At the end of the show, he, of course, doesn't want it to be where he has now won $60,000 thanks to people going over. Instead, he says, hey, guess what? We're just going to pay. I'm going to donate the $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club because I want them to receive this donation. And guess what? CBS, the broadcaster of this whole thing, they're coming in. I think it was another $250,000. So it's $350,000 to the Boys and Girls Club, which you guys all love. So you had your speeches. We got it in. We saved 3 minutes. Great stuff. Let's go home. And yes, that's a happy ending in a lot of ways. Like, okay, we saved 3 minutes on the broadcast and these poor kids get this donation. That's great. But the problem is that if he ever wanted to do this in the future, you have now lost the credible commitment of saying, hey, here's the money. There's going to be a ticker going down that shows that if you are not on time, boys and girls are losing money thanks to your selfishness. Because now anyone that does this in the future, the speakers are going to know, like, wow, they're not serious about this. This is just a gimmick, not a big deal. I'm going to say what I want to say. So they've totally lost that credible commitment, which is an important concept in economics as well, right? In game theory, if you want the other side to act the way you're hoping to strategically, you need to be credible in what you're going to do. And if you break that credible commitment, they know going forward, like, yeah, I don't need to be worried about the threats that he's giving me. Well, now that that credible commitment is gone, what could we do better? Well, the natural next step, as most economists would think, as you might be thinking, and kind of came up with this discussion on the Israeli daycare, is to say, well, the price was too low. $1,000 a second, not a big deal. Let's just increase the price. Well, what are you going to increase it to? $2,000 a second, $5,000 a second? You have to start at a pretty high donation level to make sure that that doesn't get sucked up by the first speaker. So that's going to be a really expensive way to try and get people to do what you want them to do. But of course, it's an option. But I think that there's a way that you can do this at the same financial cost, but cheaper, like more effective, more high powered. That's the way to think about it. Something that will actually get people to question what they're doing. Now, this is a concept that I learned from Dean Carlin. He is an economist at Northwestern. He was at Yale when I was a PhD student there. He's also at USAID. He has he's a very well-regarded development economist, a great guy, and he had this concept that he developed. I think he developed it when he was working with people trying to keep their goals. He developed a website called stick.com and said, hey, people want to keep their goals similar to what we're seeing here, right? Where you want to do something, but your own self is acting, your future self is acting against your interests, right? You want to give a speech, you want to do it in time, and now you're going overtime. How do I punish myself for going overtime? This is an interesting concept because this is not me trying to get somebody else to do something. This is me trying to get myself to do something. And classic economics, we would say, well, just be rational. Tell yourself not to do that thing that you don't want to do. But we aren't 100% rational. And so we make mistakes. And so he was trying to figure out, like, how do you use economic principles to get yourself to do what you want to do? And one of the principles was the same thing that Nate Bargatze did, which was, hey, you need to, you're going to commit yourself to do this thing. Quit smoking, lose weight, write a book, whatever it is. And if you fail to reach your goal, then you are going to donate money to a charity, right? So you had to put the money in. You could get the money back if you accomplished your goal. If you failed, you had to donate to a charity. Now, that seems like a nice incentive because you want to make sure you keep your money. But on the other hand, like, not a terrible consequence when you think about it. Like, oh, I didn't reach my goal. I didn't lose my weight, whatever it is. And now, like, the Boys and Girls Club, they get $100 donation. You're not feeling too bad about yourself. So he incorporated what was called an anti-charity. And the anti-charity was, maybe you are a big supporter of, let's say, political movements to remove guns, right? Some sort of gun control thing. And your donation would go to promoting those causes. But if you do not reach your goal, your donation is actually going to go to the National Rifle Association, right? The NRA, who promotes guns, right? And so now, if you don't make this, you're donating to an organization against your interests. And I think it would be so interesting if at the next Emmys, if they wanted to experiment with this again, instead of donating to a charity, they pick some anti-charity for them. You might even get some most people in Hollywood are very vocally left on the political spectrum, very vocally anti-Trump, right? Like, there were speeches, as I understand, at the Emmys that were against some of the things going on in politics today, as there typically are. And so what if you set up every second that they go over 45 seconds, we're going to donate to the Trump, it wouldn't be Trump's reelection, though, who knows with the way things he wants are going. Maybe the Vance. We're going to donate to JD Vance's political campaigns. We're going to donate to Republicans. We're going to donate to the NRA. We're going to donate to these organizations that promote Republican policies. Would you see a big change in how people act when they know that, hey, it's not just $1,000 that I'm losing to a charity, it's $1,000 supporting Trump. And so every second I go over, I'm saying I support Trump. You might get some interesting thing where you get Republicans watching and they're rooting on Hollywood and being like, yeah, keep going. Adrian Brody's got to win this year. 5 minutes and 36 seconds. We're winning the next election, right? Like, there are some really funny things that could happen if they change it from a charity to an anti-charity. Thanks a ton for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and YouTube thinks that you're interested in this video.